Greetings, Tentasnar and Dracovin, your Lord Emperor here, the Dracovin Empire, and welcome, once and all, we're diving back into the Sixth World. Are you ready for some Shadowrun today? Of course, we've got our folks that have been joining me live on Twitch over here. We've been talking about Shadowrun before here, so hey, you can always show up and join us live. But for all of you out there who are over on the YouTube channel, that motorcycle wasn't very loud. Over on the YouTube channel, I have no idea if my sound blocker got rid of that there or not. Anyway, you guys, please appease the algorithm by liking, subscribing, ringing the bell, all those kind of things. And my question for comments for all today is, have any of you adventured in Hong Kong? And I'm sure the video game takes place in Hong Kong, Shadowrun Returns, is an option to talk about here, because personally, I haven't finished that game. I played a little bit of it, and just going to get back to it for streaming. One of these days, I'll probably stream it. Anyway, let's dive into it, and let's talk about my main sources, because I'm going to go over a lot of information here, but there's other sources that you can go into. Plus, I gotta be honest, it's the mess of Shadowrun information sources. But the books that I would recommend, that's capturing a web page, not books. Thank you for things breaking. Let me fix that. There we go. I don't know why I was capturing a website that I had. So, yes, Shadows of Asia is a book that I could recommend checking out. It's 3rd edition, so be advised, 3rd edition is sometimes not always the best place of information, but others are Runner's Haven, which does have a good set of information on it, and of course the Sixth World Almanac. You also can use the Hong Kong Free Enterprise's Shadowrun Wiki site, which I'm doing for the timeline. It's the best place for the timeline that I've found online. But let's talk about some basics of this place here, because, yes, it's Hong Kong. It is an independent location that is separate from any other government, and it has been independent since 2015 in the Shadowrun world. Its main languages are Cantonese and English. It's got a bunch of different provinces. We'll get into them today. And its government is a corporate government or a capitalist republic. You could see it both ways. They border the Canton Confederation, Hainan, the Philippines, Taiwan. Those are their main neighbors. What is that? And they're a peninsula with some islands, some rolling hills, some steppes. So, yeah, and they have a little bit over 8 million people there, as of around the 2070s, so as of 4th edition. So, maybe some surges in growth, maybe some not, but those are the general statistics that you would think of when you're talking about this. They also are, like most places, primary human, with some elves, dwarves, orcs, trolls, and a few bit of others. So keep that in mind. And they're very heavily corporate affiliated. Also keep that in mind, too. Nuyin's the currency, and there are some major religions there with Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, Shamanism, and Christianity having all influence in the country. Alright, let's talk about their history a little bit. Just a little bit of introduction to this place. Because this is an independent, basically corporate state. Wuxing is the major presence here if you're going to talk about everything. So we go back to 2015, and China is having a lot of communist crackdowns. A lot of things are going on. Remember, this is early on in the 20s, 2010s, 2010s, 2020s. A lot of shit's going on in the world. We have magic coming back. We have the emergence of metatypes. We have plague going on. We have the internet, the first crash. All this stuff is going on now. So in 2015, Hong Kong basically is like, look, no, we're going independent. Now, originally, Britain was going to aid Hong Kong. But it got duped by corporations. The British diplomat stalls a Chinese retaliation, and corporate backers basically secured the control of the new free city. So, yeah, originally Britain was going to help them out, the ties to Hong Kong, and it didn't work because corporations swooped in and just was like, nope, ours now. Swu Kan Lai who is the founder and original CEO of Wuxing Incorporated, builds his corporate headquarters in a carefully picked location in Aberdeen, within Hong Kong. That's 2017. So, hey, turns out great things for corporate interest. Now, we do have to talk about the crime on the Wu side, because now in the criminal side, the Red Dragon Association becomes the most powerful triad in Hong Kong, with the great dragon Lung at its head. So now we have not only a major megacorp basically putting its corporate headquarters here, you got a criminal organization with a great dragon at its head. Really screams for independence. So we go to 2025, 2029, and this is when we get refugees. They flood into this because it's a neutral area, and it's prosperous. Basically, we have the Republic Civil War in China, and the failed National Revolution in the Philippines. These are major events happening in these late 2020s, and refugees are flooding. Now we get to 2039, when Lung Kang Lai passes away, and his control of the corporation goes to his son, Wu Lung Wei. So the nationalist war between Canton Confederation and Taiwan in 2044 results in more refugees settling in Hong Kong. More influx of population. Again, you have to remember, a lot of shit's happening. Global return of magic, plagues, wars, all kinds of things. So I'm sure Hong Kong's population during the earlier 20th century dipped. We keep getting these refugees to keep their numbers up to be a major city. 2054. The Yama King's power grows influential in the walled city to the point it threatens to escape into Greater Hong Kong. It's neutralized by a group of Shadowrunners led by a Seattle native. I think that's the video game. I'm 95% sure that's the video game's entire plot. Again, I didn't get deep into it, but I think that's the video game's plot. It's canon in the time, so keep that. The Wu family in Wuxing in 2057 received a small number of valuable bequests from Dunkle's, from his will. Then we get to 2059, when Wu Lung Wei completes his father's dream and forms the Pacific Prosperity Group, a pan-corporate trade organization designed to combat Japanese economic control of Asia. And then we get 2061, astral space becomes visible to the mundane around Wuxing Sky Tower in Aberdeen. We'll talk about that. That's an important part of things. Hong Kong's very magic. In 2062 to 2063, there's a triad war that breaks out between the Red Dragon Association and their main rival, the Yellow Lotus Triad. The latter one gets completely destroyed. Turns out, the dragons who have a dragon at their head, a little bit more powerful. I don't know, just saying. 2062, we have the Crash 2.0, and we have government reforms that changed the process of determining Hong Kong's government in that time period. And then in 2068, the pro-democratic and anti-corporate organization 9x9s first appears in Hong Kong. So now you have a basic idea of some of the history of Hong Kong. And I'm sure there's more details, but we don't have those. It's one of those unfortunate things that we only have as much information as the books provide. I gave you 3 good books. I would also recommend, if you want to look at a lot of books that have small bits of information on Hong Kong Free Enterprise Zone, or any country, or any region, city, in Shadowrun, just check out the wiki page and deal with some ads. And you can... It's very good art. I love later editions art, too. I definitely agree on that one. There's a whole list of books and places to look in them. But yeah, these 3 books are the best ones I would recommend. But there's a lot of books that have information. So keep that in mind. And they usually have pages cited for a lot. Let's talk a little bit about the culture and some of the elements in the city. We're gonna culture and underworld here, because I feel like that's a good place to start out with Hong Kong. So you have to understand that Hong Kong still has a lot of old Chinese idealisms in it. Connections are very important when it comes to doing business. Family, not just immediate family, grandparents, siblings, in-laws, cousins, thrice removed, are important. Connections with them are important. So when you make an enemy of one person, you might be making an enemy of 100 people. Also, hierarchy in society is important, and knowing who's your better. It's very Confucianism, strongly influencing this area that still exists today in the Shadowrun world. Every individual knowing their place in society. People keep a virtual social scorecard and maintain a tally in their heads of whose scorecard is higher, basically. And of course, etiquette is also important. How polite this or that person acts. You learn pretty early that you're supposed to be courteous to each other, and that courteousness to others even when you're ripping them off. There's also the concept of face that deals with your honor, reputation, street credibility, and so on. If you screw someone over, be advised, it's advisable to give that individual the opportunity to restore their reputation, otherwise you might make an enemy. So it's like, if you could take advantage of a person, at least give them the opportunity to get out from the mar on their reputation. You know, that is an important part of that, or they could be an enemy. Now we can talk about magic and the metahumans, because that's a good thing to talk about. And for metahumanity, honestly, both not good and good, I'm going to tell you. Because there are things like when in China, orc and troll children were born, or changed, or novelization, parents would abandon them. You know, it's a lot of that old sentimentality, you know, that comes in from China there. And, you know, the one-child policy still remaining, still having that sentimentality. And some other, but there's due to some cultural factors that are still within the Chinese people as a whole, which the Hong Kong people are a offshoot of that in the 2070s. The Han people were actually more able to easily accept the emergence of metahuman than many other people in the world, and especially in Asia, in comparison to Japan, India, the Middle East, or like some of the more conservative regions of the West. Places like the Confederation of American States and Spain are very conservative and really had trouble with metahumans. So the treatment of metahumans is, generally speaking, better in this region, and in that retrospect, Hong Kong, than most of the world. It reflects in the Chinese megacorps like Wuxin, and their criminal syndicates like Triads and both Taoism and Buddhism. So if you are a metahuman, and you are from Hong Kong or Chinese descent, you're probably better off with others of your own community than a lot of other places. Now for magic, well, overall as a whole, we do have to talk about that magic was easily integrated into the society as a whole. Again, this is a thing because Hong Kong culture definitely represents a lot of the Chinese culture in the region. It's influencing by Taoism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and therefore when magic returned, was integrated into the society as a whole very easier than a lot of other nations, especially things that are more Catholic nations and Islamic nations. Those major religious sources had trouble with magic. Not that they couldn't actually eventually accept it or understand it, but it took a while. So there was a lot of favor in awakened people early on, before a lot of the tough stuff happened in the Chinese region. And the use of magic in the society is much greater than in the West. Wuxing favors it heavily. And other states like Sichuan, Manchurian, they have less respect for the dragons. Triads respect it. And the city of Hong Kong, magic's top tier. And that's where we also have to get to geomancy, because it's a big thing in Hong Kong. And the city itself is a zone of wild magic. And a lot of that magic is visible in astral space. The Wuxing Sky Tower is built on the intersection of 5 major dragon lines. Basically, lines of magical energy. So they built their place just at the right spot. Just keep that in mind. If we ever do a video on Wuxing, keep that in mind. I'll probably do Megacorps, current and historical, at one point in time. We've done a bunch of countries. Or maybe I'll split them in when I finish some of the other Tuesday topics. We'll do some more Shadow. Alright. Now the final thing I want to talk about before we switch gears a little bit is, of course, Crime! Why? It's a pretty big important thing in a city, especially when you're a Shadowrunner. You know, it's just one of those things. You're doing crimes. And in the Hong Kong sprawl, the Triads rule. That's it. They're the masters of the underground. And nearly all the crime in the underworld is under their control. And it goes from very white-collar things to street-level stuff, major crime, protection rackets, smuggling, gambling, drugs, flesh trade, all of it related to them. They can control whole districts and have influence on corporations, definitely both domestic and foreign, who are doing it. Now, it's not necessarily a monopoly. It's pretty close to being a monopoly, not there yet. The city itself does have approximately 150 street gangs. And there are some foreign syndicates that have small footholds. The Russian and Korean mobs operate in Hong Kong and have not big control, but they have small footholds. But no Yakuza and no Mafia. No presence in Hong Kong. Mafia, other reasons, but Yakuza, Triads would not tolerate the presence there. And to a degree, the Mafia, too. Especially the Yakuza. Yeah, can't spell crime without me. Alright, so, that's some basics that we've kind of been introduced to just a little bit here. And we do want to talk about what's in Hong Kong. The various districts and locations you can visit. I'll do this nice map here. Now I've got a slightly bigger map, but this is the map from Shadows of Asia. I've got a map from Six World Almanac we'll go over too. But we'll talk about some of these places. So, it's on a peninsula, it's got the outlying islands, it's got a small portion of land that's actually used for development, but the problem is, it's mountainous. So when you get to the continent part of Hong Kong, mountainous. So a lot of the nearly 9 million residents, or 8 to 9 million residents, are packed along the harbor, on the tips of the peninsula, and near its significant island, Hong Kong Island. To the north of the harbor is, of course, the poorer residents, boxed in by a flow of unregistered refugees. To the south of the harbor is where the better half lives, under the watchful eye of the megacorps. The north part of the peninsula, and across the well-monitored border, is the Cantonese city of Shenzhen. And to the west, across the Pearl River estuary, stands a mercenary port of Macau, which is the smaller, wilder sibling city of Hong Kong. So we got some major cities nearby, the Cantonese city of Shenzhen and the mercenary port of Macau. Let's talk about downtown. So against the northern face of Victoria Peak, and down the slope towards the harbor, is the heart of Hong Kong, the showcase of corporate glory. It's where most of the corporations are, many of the employees make their home. The central district is it's a mercenary port. So, might be a place for gambling. It's a place, I guess, if you're going to hire mercenaries. I'd have to look deeper into Macau. But it's an interesting question. Whether, I'd assume that's probably got a lot of gambling stuff too. Good question. So the Central District is the center of industry in Hong Kong. It's a narrow but crowded band of skyscrapers stretching along the western Victoria Harbour coastline on Hong Kong Island, enveloping even the old western districts in Kennedy Town. At night, the skyline lines up with illuminated ferries shuttling past the strange corporate towers, their bizarre forms guided by the wisdom of feng shui geomancers. During the day, the buildings do silent battle over mystical energies that course through the city, trying to ensure that their ki is ideal for their endeavors while focusing bad ki on their competitors. The organically curved Yoro Tower sits just before the waters, lacking any flat surface that might impede the flow of energy traveling down the Victoria Peak to the sea. The Wellington building, home of the international finance conglomerate Hildebrandt Kleinfort Bernal, just finished an expensive refinishing to add mirrored surface to the outside of their skyscraper to reflect back poison arrows of bad ki from the sharp edges of the nearby Seder Krupp, Swiss bank headquarters. So, and you can get headlines of incidents of uncontrolled magic or scandalous activities of out-of-control spirits in the Central District. It's a lot of mystical tinker. So, that gives you an idea of this center part of downtown. The peaks there, mid-levels, where young and overcover officials live. And of course, the causeway, the Wan Chai Causeway, east of the Central District, is a swanky, artsy, intellectual, downright expensive area. So, if you want to go chic and expensive, Causeway is the place you want to go to. Alright. Eastern Hong Kong. Mount Butler and Mount Parker cloister away the sleepy towns of eastern Hong Kong from the bustle of downtown. Corporate nuclear families make their homes in prefabricated but pleasantly comfortable upper-middle-class suburbs. Large shopping malls, supercenters give their families everything, and downtown is only a tram wide away to get to your job. This is once home to the Schwery Group, a business conglomerate that dated back to the colonial days of Hong Kong, and diversified from everything from carbonated beverages to international shipping. Wuxing purchased them back in 2010. And so this area served as the home ground for Wuxing until Lu Kan Wai built the new headquarters in Aberdeen in 2017. And oddly enough, in these little villages, it's not the gleaming glass and steel towers of Central, but the corporate forged plans of Hong Kong's independence 2015 kind of built apart. They basically like that they're little sleepy little towns in this area. So, some of these places are Taiko Shing, Shakui, I'm going to butcher some of these, so apologize on that one. Shuake Wan and Chaiwan are some of the smaller towns in this region. You'll check them out. Southern Coast. There's like 10 of these areas. I think 11 of these areas I'm going to go through, so we're going to get through them pretty quickly, but not super quickly. So, the Southern Coast, this is where, in the old days, it was Mahjong titles and Mahjong tiles, fishermen, it's still is a little bit of that, where, the fishermen are bringing in their catches, and, the old men are playing Mahjong, waiting for the stuff to come in to send it out to various places. It's a different world from Central. The Southern Coast District is very traditionally Chinese. Since 2017, Wuxing Incorporated has owned large portions of the Southern Coast and imposed strict district development laws and claims to protect and celebrate the traditions of Hong Kong. So basically, it's no accident that this is very much traditional Hong Kong. More recently, there's more reasons behind it, with Wu Kan Wai's efforts down here. Basically, the dragon lines crisscross the coast, making it magically rich area. So, hey, don't develop it. Don't send ideas into there. Aberdeen is the largest town in the southern coast. And home to the Wuxing Sky Tower. Wow. Why isn't Wuxing in downtown? I don't know. It's a marvel modern feng shui construction that moves over the quiet town, encircled by the astral shadows of the astral space in physical world. And if you want to see something really neat there, Ocean Park was once an aquarium and sea-themed resort park. But the awakened local marine biologist noted high populations of aquatic paracritters in the area, moon dolphins especially, and some other creatures. And so now it's a research lab / sea life protection area that the park was kind of switched over to because of a lot of the awakened creatures. Very interesting. So, yep. Fish market's still there. Aberdeen itself is still pretty sleepy. Moon dolphins. Type of awakened dolphin. and a variation of the marrow creatures, Masuyanari. So, yep. So you definitely have like the normal fish market, the classic Hong Kong fish market, as you would probably go there today, still exists in the southern coast. So a lot of those, areas around the coast, still there. Just as they were. Stanley's a place there you can check out, a sunny town of pubs and view-sized markets. Good question about moon dolphins. Further information. Unfortunately, I would probably have to get a paracritter book for that. I would have to probably find one of those. Because they are a awakened critter. So I just was seeing if I could find a thing on them very quickly. Moon dolphins. Let me find a quick paracritter look up line. Oh, cetaceans. Known for protecting illusionary terrain in the South China Sea and Northern Pacific Ocean, they travel with mundane dolphins and the occasional ghost dolphin. So there you go. It's rare. It's a magical dolphin that produces illusions. There you go. Good information. I was able to look that up quickly. Land critter lists online, but very interesting to look at. Anyway, so Stanley's a very nice place if you want to go to some pubs, beachside markets, and that kind of thing. It's a pleasant atmosphere. It's very different from the, what we would know. Just because, again, it's changed a lot, A bunch of Filipino metahumans came to there to escape Japanese persecution. So it's got a lot of that culture now moved in. Alright. Yao Sim Mong. It's a district of Hong Kong extremes. The streets are packed from one side to the other with market stalls that present the press flesh of thousands of people. The sky is replaced by layers of signs, both real and AR, mixing Chinese characters with English text scrolling horizontally, vertically, and anywhere else that could fit. Thousands of rapidly spoken Cantonese conversations are overwhelmed by the sense of dim sum and herbal tea stands, and artificial rainfalls overhead from shuddering crowded air conditioners hanging precariously over tenement windows. This is the heart of Hong Kong. There's the neighborhood of Mong Kong, which is a claustrophobic crush of high-rise tenements. Yao Ma Tei is another densely packed neighborhood, earns its reputation as one of the horror mystic markets, where you get street stalls of arcane goods, some authentic, some not. And Siam Sha Sui, at the very tip of the Kowloon Peninsula, has more or less extension of the corporate culture in Hong Kong Island, a cleaned-up parallel to the district's wilder neighborhoods. So basically, it's kind of like an in-between of the corporate area and what Yao Sim Mong really is, which is just tightly packed, people doing business, just living their lives, squeezed all together in tenement buildings and things like that. Very, very busy. Kowloon City. So, it's urbanism pushed to the very edge and knocked right over the side. So, this is a place of primarily unregistered refugees, even generations after they've entered into the territory. It's lawless, blight rule. The police are stretched thin here and often pulled back to maintain the peace of districts where the residents pay taxes and are affiliated with corporations. Criminal syndicates govern here more often, and more frequently with demonstrations, ruling through violence. Basically, Hong Kong as a whole has mostly given up on Kowloon City, and basically contains it like a disease. It's had debatable success. The people there carry on. Yeah, and this is like where all the refugees from all those times refugees poured in came into. And some of these refugees became citizens, but plenty of them just continued to be refugees generations later. It's not a very pretty place, it's not a very fair place, but Kowloon City survives on its own little twisted level. The small gangs and urban tribes carve out their own sections of turf and try to create some semblance of normal life. Though it's always darker, more desperate, and more dangerous than the typical standards of anywhere else. Hung Hom, down the southern tip near the harbor, basically the tribes have taken over old shopping malls, theme parks, and converted them into bizarre communities. And they are often portrayed as on by the violent gangs or triads. A lot of these tribe members swell with each passing year as more locals find value in the close-knit social networks the tribe provides. So yes, the idea of the violence around there is a thing, but like these smaller like inset tribal groups that have been forming are becoming more of a core of it because they look out for each other. They defend each other. It's a level of peace. Along the coast, if you go further, the old Kai Tak airport. You've got smugglers, counterfeits, junks, merchants, tinkerers on the old runway in an open-air bazaar. Yeah. Well, I mean, Shadowrun's feels post-apocalyptic, even though it didn't really have an apocalypse. No. It's very cyberpunk world. So, yeah. A lot of goods come in by boat, pulled up alongside the runway that extends over the water, or passed off to the boat people who live all year on their sampans and houseboats to the in the adjacent typhoon shelters. Just kind of got a niche here, where if you need to buy anything in Hong Kong, or sell anything, go to Kai Tak. And further north is the Kowloon walled city. The darkest nightmare of Kowloon. So, in the 20s, when refugees first came in, basically, this area was mostly parks and light residential housing. The violent criminal gangs started to invade homes, taking them over. Refugees turned the city parks into squalor tent cities. More people arrived, become more crowded, desperates. The corporations were forced to build some kind of housing for the refugees, only to keep them bottled up away from the rest of the residents, and the walled city was the result. The dark core of the slums, tightly packed together, resembling a solid wall of decay from a distance. Yeah, I mean, again, Kowloon City is a lot larger than this. It's just the walled city is that core of it, and represents a lot of the most worst parts of it. Unfortunately. The most worst parts of it. Here's our next map. Said I had another map. So Kwun Tong. Machinery. Factories. This is the first sign, and the noise from them is the first sign you've entered this district. This is the manufacturing center of Hong Kong, roused from an economic slumber by the implosion of China and the nationalism of Japan. Basically, they had lost a lot of their oomph, but when things went bad everywhere else, they had infrastructure set up to start manufacturing again. So they did. So overnight, the place that had lost most of its manufacturing, cheap labor elsewhere, become one of the last stable locations left with reliable and skilled workers. Raw materials and basic manufacturing components flooded into the ports from Chinese warlord states and Southeast Asia, where they're processing complex goods and shipped back to the markets. And this recovery has been a sort of little miracle to the local corporations. It did bring about lax labor laws, horrible working conditions, pollution. So it is a core of industrial plants at the center of this district. It is a breeding but it is also a breeding ground of anti-corporate radical movement. The movement exists today and operates under a single banner, and it's believed to have its origin in desperate mixture of labor, environmentalist, and democratic movements that sprung up independently in the district. So, as its home turf, it's its primary target. And it has been successful in attacking corporate infrastructure here. There are two more neighborhoods on the outskirts here that I can mention. Jordan Valley, which is a former landfill closed and transformed into a series of massive low-income housing complexes. A temporary solution to population shifts in the neighborhood. And of course, in the southeast of the district is Lam Tin, a concentrated hub of transportation into this area and in the city. There are 8 private bus line terminals, 2 private taxi hubs, a major train station that handles one of the 2 underwater trains, tunnels that connect to Hong Kong Island for the peninsula, 2 massive highway tunnels, one traveling underwater alongside the train tunnel and one traveling east through the mountains to Sai Kung. And the seafront of Lam Tin has been reclaimed and transformed to piers for lighter ships to go in and out and unload freight ships still at sea. So they don't have to necessarily go into the port proper to get stuff from these ships that need to be industrial processing here. They can take smaller ships in. So it's a transportation hub that connects up with, hey, major industry. Sai Kung. So, following Hong Kong's independence, the corporations took over the city's governments. They lifted a lot of environmental protections on Hong Kong's many natural parks. And similar to the North American resource rush, pristine land had some valuable resources, and Sai Kung suffered heavily from this. They took what they could. The land was ravaged for too much for tourism, and crime moved in. So the rocky inlets, protected coves, and tiny islands were perfect for pirates, especially close to the shipping lanes of Hong Kong. So in a way, corporate greed has crafted a monster that keeps the people of Sai Kung are still trying to tackle to this day. Hey, yeah, corporate greed created, pirates in large amounts. So small villages dot the coasts of Sai Kung, and coastal security forces have had very little luck in recruiting their aid against the pirate activity. Basically because the villagers are cut off from the rest of Hong Kong and have closer contact with the criminals and the government. If the pirate crew hits ships traveling into Hong Kong, they hide their loot in a cove somewhere until the merchandise isn't as hot. Then they trade their loot to the village boat people who shuffle down to the Kai Tai market. Hey, we're connected. It's like, hey, the codes aren't hot anymore. If you guys go sell them over there, will you get something for this? And they're like, okay. Because it's the closest thing to people looking out for them. The Tolo Harbor Complex, another district. There's no official military in the Hong Kong Free Enterprise Zone. But it doesn't mean there aren't wearing a flag. That doesn't mean there aren't folks that are wearing a flag when they shoot you dead. It's a privatized free city, so corporate security is ubiquitous. Near the entire central district is a patchwork of extraterritorial corporate zones spotting dozens of different security forces. The Tolo Harbor Complex goes a step further. It is home to Hong Kong's Marine Authority as well as Hong Kong's Special Police Forces, overseen by Ares and Evo. There's a massive military base in everything but name. At the throat of the harbor is the town Sha Tin. It's bisected by the massive Xingmen Canal, and a controlled river waterway that constantly buzzes with maintenance drones and unmanned supply barges that ferry to wet and dry docks, surfacing Evo's Navitech, parliamentary boats and ships. So, yeah. North of here is Tai Po, which is essentially Ares town. After Knight Errant snagged the Hong Kong police contract out of Mitsuhima's hands, they invested heavily in the village of Tai Po, triggering a base for their special police units. Located. So yeah. There is a military district here. 3 more areas to talk about, and then we'll kind of move into finishing up with some of the government here, and the corporations. You know, certainly there's different levels of things. Aries. Yes, I can. Hi, Foggy. Because Foggy's going to be in the background for Bruce. The Northern Reaches. It's commonly an often accurate view of Hong Kong sprawl is one of crowds, noise, light, capitalism unleashed. That's what people think about when they think Hong Kong. The Northern Reaches is different. They're very nominally part of the Hong Kong sprawl, and a little bit of the Cantonese sprawl of Shenzhen. So it's kind of like the border between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Their small villages have changed little in the past centuries. Families, extended family clans continue to live the old-fashioned way, farming, fishing. Rice paddies, soybean farms in the northeast section of this district around Yuen Long supply most of Hong Kong's small homegrown food supply. So yeah, there's a lot of superstition, religion. It's very thick and powerful here. A lot of the old ways. There are some people that are buying this place, like Ask Technology. The locals really aren't interested in Ask Technology's offers, and they haven't found a way to pressure them yet. They don't really have a deep reach in Hong Kong as they do in the Americas, so they wanted to put some in the marshlands here, the National Vat micro-protein farms. Hasn't really worked out. Kwai Sing is a district immediately identifiable by the legions of shipping vessels huddled in the waters around it. So remember, I talked about more of the areas of shipping. Here it is. It's dozens of spidery cranes lifting an endless supply of shipping containers in the port. This peninsula section of Kwai Sing is known as Kwai Chung. It is home to the infamous container port, prime point of contact for most shipping materials in and out of Hong Kong. It's responsible for Hong Kong being the largest seaport in the world, and constantly in contention with the Europort for the busiest. Beyond the port facilities, Kwai Chung is mostly warehouses, blue-collar residential complexes catering to port workers, many of whom are mainland refugees and metahumans. The other main section of the district is Sing Yi Island, just across the Rambler Channel from Kwai Chung. It contains some limited port facilities, most notably the Mitsuhama-owned and largely unmanned Yingchao port. But its real significance is moving goods and people around after they've come ashore. Sing Yi is threaded with bridges connecting the island to Kwai Chung, the Chek Lap Kobe Airport, highways crowded with new arrivals to the city, massive truck trains shuttling freight to the peninsula. It has a number of hotels catering to business transients, offering blocks of coffin motels for thrifty travelers. And there has been reports of human trafficking and smuggling on the rise in this area, but that's a different problem overall, but just, keep that in mind. And finally, Land 2 Island. It used to be a collection of tracts of protected parks. Now it's an area of corporate resorts and gated communities. The unspoiled beauty of the island and wide open space attracted corporations very early on. It was prime real estate. The executives that live on the mid-levels, they could live beyond it. They needed something better. So here it was. As far as vacations concerned, Land 2 claims it all. Massive entertainment concepts like Virtual Horizons Disney, piers for passenger cruise ships making tours through the Pacific Rim, spectacular age-old temples. The interior island has the grandest, wealthiest temples in all of Hong Kong, competing with each other for the most followers, tourists, and money. The undisputed winner is the famous Kowloon Monastery, with its 26-meter-tall bronze Buddha statue sitting atop a temple pedestal overlooking the countryside. Still others compete for big donations. It has a number of knowing neighborhoods which distinguish itself. Discovery Bay is a stone's throw away from the Disney Resort. Silvermine Bay used to be highly polluted, but Chihuahua led an effort to clean up the area and has done a remarkable job. Scientists worry that the pollutant-eating bacteria they used is also for plant life. That's a different trouble. Pui O is a typical beachside resort, split between spoiled social butterflies and pricey hotel resorts. Sung Chung is an aggressively growing little burb in the shadows of Cheklapko International Airport with Chendi Tricksetters for the business class crowd. So there you go. Now you have an idea of, well, what's here? We have one final thing to talk about today before we finish up talking about it, and that's who's in charge of Hong Kong. Because that's an important thing to talk about. Because they are independent. They won their independence from the People's Republic of China. And have then since been governed by corporations. There are two main governing bodies. They are the Board of Governors and the Executive Council. So, this government, built for corporations, let's talk about each of them. So, the Board of Governors. As of 2072, the Board of Governors is 28 members panel, with the primary requirement of being a member of the panel to be a member of a corporation that is active in its investments in Hong Kong's growth. So if you're a corporation, and you're active in Hong Kong's growth, you can have someone on the Board of Governors. So currently 28, that tells you there are 28 corporations large enough to be on the Board of Governors. I can give you the current list of some of the people on some of the boards. We'll get to that as in 20 seconds. So, the Executive Council, though, an Executive Council of Public Citizens, is elected by the Board of Governors to administer the zone. So the Executive Council handles all aspects of lawmaking and governance. A chairman of the board is elected each year in February through the majority vote of the Executive Council. So basically, yes, the Executive Council, who actually govern the place, is chosen by the Board of Governors. And the Board of Governors is just a panel of the current major investment kind of corporations in Hong Kong that are active. Okay. The chairman sets the agenda, elected by the Executive Council. And previous powerful chairmen have been known to effect lasting change on the free enterprise zone, establishing a legacy for the next one to protect. So, it's all about trade, baby. It's also good to note there are no taxes and tariffs on goods, nor are there capital gains taxes assessed against financial transactions based in the city. Keep that in mind. In addition to the shelters, this provides the Board of Governors the free enterprise policy that attracts many foreign investors and tourists. So 40 million people visit Hong Kong for tourism and business annually, bringing billions of millions in the local market. So we want to ensure that. Once they are elected to the Executive Council, these 8 members serve for 8-year terms. They cannot be elected for consecutive terms. And every 2 years, 2 new slots open up on the Elective Council, and the Board of Governors replaces them in a closed-door session. It is no limit to how often a council member can be the chairman in their term. Keep that in mind also. They can keep being re-elected. You know. And laws passed by the council require a 6-majority vote. As of 2070, the current council was Deng Sai Khan, the chairman, Diego Mangabat, Yi Yingzi, William Wu, May Sterling, Tai Kong, Shan, and Dr. David Tong. So, yep. I unfortunately don't think I can, if you want to look about the previous group and some information about them, there was, in the Shadows of Asia, they did actually give more information on the 8 members, but we know they're replacements. So just keep that in mind. You know their names and some information about them, basically, but not as much. But, yeah. As for corporations, do have to talk a little bit about that. Who's the major players? Well, certainly speaking, Wuxing, Ares Asia Holdings, As Technology, Australia Asia, Daihatsu Incorporated, Eastern Tiger Corporation, Evo Navtech, Hildebrandt, Kleinford Bernal, Horizon Group, Kuruyama Geosource, Mitsuhama Hong Kong, Pacific Prosperity Group, Sator Krupp Swiss Bank, Shiba Construction and Engineering, Ziu Renraku Computer Systems, Yamatsu, and the Yokogawa Corporation are all large corporate presences between, I believe, triple and double A megacorps. Some of them are on the corporate council, some of them are not. So, yes. But those are the major corporate presence. Oh, and I did manage to find it in here. In the Runner's Haven book, you can look up on the various members of the current council. As of 2072. Yep. And learn about those council members a little bit more. I'm not going to get into today. That's not my job for today. I've introduced you to Hong Kong. So yeah, that's the city of Hong Kong. And the nation of Hong Kong, the free enterprise. So you can see there's a lot to unpack here. It is a city of night and day in a lot of ways, where there's this huge corporate presence that they own the city. They took it over. And they've used it to their power. All the corporations that are involved in there are very rich and have gotten more rich. They've managed to increase their investment. And certainly, Wuxing and their presence there is an important one to talk about. I mean, I think I will eventually have a video on the megacorps and talk about Wuxing a little bit more, but it reacts to Hong Kong very heavily. But it's a city also of tradition, as you can kind of see. Talking about the area there and how we have corporate zone areas that are very traditional, and then, of course, areas of just stuffed people. Whether they are the areas of refugees or just areas that of tenant buildings that are shoved together for, like, the, simple, just urban sprawl. They all exist here. It's a land of varying differences. A land where you can, in a way, get anything, buy anything, sell anything. Whether it's be officially or unofficially. And certainly, if you really want to play in that region, the Shadowrun Hong Kong computer game is a option. I would not put it against people if they wanted to use that as their experience in Hong Kong. It's a great place for a run. Lots of different corporations. Lots of different people. Lots of different things. And lots of different trade. In and out. Of runners. Haven. After the book. It was put into. There's a reason it was called Runner's Haven. There's a reason. Anyway, I'll leave that it for today. I'll be going on a little longer with the Twitch side, but for those of you on YouTube, and you can hear it's all on Twitch, I thank everybody for joining me today. If you want to check out tabletop stuff for more Shadowrun-related content, I do tabletop-related lore and information and informative videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, early to mid-afternoon, Saturdays and backup day if I miss any of those. I have a live play of a TTRPG, Pathfinder 1st Edition, Crimson Queen on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Check that out. And of course, over on Saturday at 6 p.m., discussing tabletop, where I talk about news of the week, deeper discussion topics of the tabletop world. Those are always very informative, and I would highly recommend checking that part of the episode out at the very least. Anyway, I do a social media, link below, and I think that's all the shout-outs I have to really give about myself. I'm not always great at the self-promotion thing. I just try to figure it out as best I can and, keep it simple, keep it easy, and just, say, okay, little bit of support would be good. Appease the great algorithms wherever. Show you some love for the interesting topics that I kind of dive into and do research in. They're fun. Anyway, until the next time we talk about Shadowrun and something else tabletop related and anything else, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.